you decided to start leaning into this, you began to learn and read and study and grow at a level that led to you getting clarity that cannot be missed, because it doesn't matter what Nate knows. It matters what you want to know. So talk about that a little bit. One of Nelson's key principles is rethink your thinking and not being afraid to capitalize. Well, y'all did that in your learning. And I think that gets missed so often that played a gigantic role in all.
As a nurse, I was making very good money, and I felt like because of that, it gave me a sense of control. And maybe I didn't know at the time that I needed to work on that. Realizing that I'm really not in control of anything. And so, when Clay first introduced the idea, I was skeptical and I was not ready to turn over the reins to him or to God. Let me keep holding on to this because I can.
Welcome to the Cashflow Legendz podcast with your hosts Nate, Brandon, and Brock. Remember, our insights are not direct financial advice, so consult with your financial team before making any decisions based on the topics discussed in this show.
Welcome back to Cashflow Legendz. Nate and I are joined by some dear friends of ours. And if the settings look familiar or similar, it's because Clay and Kristy are on the front porch and I'm on the back porch of their first Airbnb in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. So, Nate, it's always an exciting thing to get to hear other people's stories. Clay and Kristy's story about how they came to IBC and becoming your own banker, and Nelson's message, and how they now are connected to ULC is a really cool story. And they're stepping outside of their comfort zone a little bit, which we have found is the best way to grow, is to get uncomfortable. So, Clay and Kristy, very excited to have you on and excited to hear your story today. How are y'all this morning?
Doing good.
Doing well. Thanks for having us.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
So we have a very unique connection because Clay's brother Chad and we were friends a long, long time ago. And I'd met Clay, one or two times along the way, but didn't really know Clay all that well. But I had a hand in introducing Chad to his wife, Michelle. And so I know Chad's How I Met Your Mother story, but Clay, for us and for those who are listening, what's the How I Met Your Mother story for y'all?
So we were both, actually, I was lifting at Louisiana Tech for the powerlifting team. And it was my second year there, I think. And Kristy decided to take the weightlifting class. And so she came down one day just to kind of see what was going on with the powerlifting team. And I wasn't lifting that day, but I knew that we were going to have some new recruits possibly coming in. And so me and my buddy Trey, we walked in and saw Kristy in the memorial gym in the weight room. And I guess from that time forward, we've been a thing. Pretty much it started, and I think 2 weeks later, we kind of went out, and then a week or two after that, she had her first powerlift meet in Alexandria. Or was it? It was Alexandria, wasn't it? And so we all rode the team bus down, and we rode side by side coming back, and I guess it's been love since then.
Let's see, 25 years later, here we are.
Wow. All right, so Clay and Kristy, you'll have an awesome story about how y'all got connected, and I've gotten to hear some details that maybe for another podcast that make the story even better, as far as just how the Lord works and how we can't always see how he's working until we have enough time that's passed to look back. And so, first of all, we're at your guys' Airbnb. You've graciously invited me and our two little boys who are actually hopping in the hot tub right now. They promised they'd be quiet. All right. Down. And I think it's a great place to start with this question. If we would have been visiting years ago because we've been friends for many, many years. Clay and I taught together at Legion Fields, coached together. Our families have known each other. Mine, Nate, and the Grubbs families have all known each other intertwined for 20 plus years, easy, probably 20, 25. If I would have said to you 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, hey, Clay and Kristy, you will be standing on your front porch in a beautiful location in Broken Bow, Oklahoma, at an Airbnb or a cabin that you own, and Brandon and Nate will be interviewing you about your story and how infinite banking, becoming your own banker, and your walk with the Lord, how they all intertwine. Kristy, what would you have said?
Probably not believable. Clay and I had many of those conversations, that everybody, married couples have, like, oh, one day we'd love to have a place in the mountains and one at the beach so we can go visit sometime. But I don't think either of us really thought it would be a reality. And then in the fall of last year, God just really started working on our hearts and telling us that he had something different in mind for us. And, Brandon, you and I had a conversation at our dinner table, and I was like, I don't know what that looks like because I've only ever done nursing. And like, how do I do something else well when I've found my identity in being what I considered a good nurse? And I remember you saying that energy that you're pouring into nursing, you're just going to redirect that into the new thing that God has you to do. And it was something I couldn't at the time wrap my mind around. And what seems like forever ago is really probably right at a year now since, we even first started having those conversations. Where
Pretty close.
My mother reminds me frequently, like, when the Airbnb is being productive and, we're learning, we're growing, we're teaching new people about IBC and stuff like that. She said that Brandon was right. He was right. He knew that you would just pour that energy into something else and be successful at something else. So thank you for your words of wisdom. Here we are a year later.
Yeah. So me and Brandon had hosted an event, an in-person event, and Clay, you came.
That was in October.
That was in October.
Yep.
That was in October.
Yep.
And I remember you looking at both of us as you were walking out the door, and you're like, all right, I think it's time.
Well, and there's a little context to that. This is my favorite part of this story. And I want to be very clear to lead it this way. We all on this recording, I think, are getting better at realizing that our timing and God's timing, they don't have to match up. So it's not I wish I woulda, and it's more what did you want us to learn, Lord, to give you glory through all of our relationships and our interactions so that we can be the hands and feet of your kingdom through our experiences you've allowed us to experience.
Yep.
And so Clay and I worked together. You remember what year we started working together at Legion Fields? We already knew of each other, but I knew Chad.
That was 12?
2012.
2012. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was
I think me and Chad met in 97, 98,
okay.
Something like that.
Yeah, that was about the time that he was at ETBU.
Yep.
Okay.
Shoe store.
So you're talking about, we're pushing 30 years of how things work together and crisscross and overlap. And so Chad, also somebody that I coached with, that his wife is best friends with my cousin, Claylee, who's very close to me, and I'm close to her. And so Chad and I, also part of our story is a part of my story with alcohol and giving alcohol up, and the Lord just wrecking our heart. And about a month or two later, Chad going, I'm quitting too. And Michelle and Leah going, I don't believe them. And praise the Lord had a plan that we couldn't wrap our mind around. So the point to all this is that life is not a straight line. And that's really
and what's funny is, Brandon, when you and I reconnected, we didn't even know that we both were friends with Chad.
No, had no idea. So when Clay and I started working together, we hit it off because one, I already knew Chad, and Chad and I had coached together. But two, we love baseball, we love the Lord, we love our kids, we love just the life that we're getting to live. but we were in very different places then
Hmm.
in our mindset and our approaches and our thought processes. And in 2018, Nate and I started living and teaching Becoming Your Own Banker and the Infinite Banking Concept. We started our company, Unlimited Life Concepts. And I brought it up to you guys, and this is not a aha, I was right. I want to be very clear here. I brought it up several times.
Oh yeah.
In different seasons over the next 10 plus years. If you really think about it,
Yeah.
somewhere, not 10,
Yeah.
6 or 7 years of the past 6, 7 years.
Yep.
And Clay and Kristy would always entertain it, have conversations. We would discuss it. Y'all would discuss it. Now that I know some of the behind the scenes conversations, but from y'all's point of view now, walk through for somebody that's listening and going, what is this Becoming Your Own Banker? What is infinite banking? Where did it start really at the root, making sense to you guys to explore and to, as Nelson said, think long range and not be afraid to capitalize and rethink your thinking? Like, where do y'all remember that being a like clear moment where you're like, we're making a shift in our thinking?
I think mine was whenever we started realizing that the retirement that we had and we thought we had was not going to be what we thought it was going to be. And so that started my wheels turning as to what's a different way to approach this. Because it's getting close to the end of my teaching career.
Yep.
I knew that a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we were starting to think of what our next, how our path was going to look after Tucker graduated this year. And so I'm a numbers guy, so I just started looking at the numbers and seeing how much money was leaving our lives that we didn't want leaving our lives. And so to me, it was about recapturing what we worked hard for and being able to use it, not just for the things that we want, but for the things that the Lord has led us towards.
Yep. So
if you
go ahead, Nate.
Well, if you had a peace of mind meter on a scale of 0 to 10, tell me where you were and where you are now.
Whew. Peace of mind, like a 3, maybe a year ago, as far as, you know, what this looked like moving forward. And
Kristy,
now,
what about? Oh, sorry, Clay.
No. Where were you at?
Yeah.
I may even lower than that. When I say that we had multiple conversations with Brandon, I think they were over at our house or we were over at their house like
every week for
a while.
6 weeks, 8 weeks, maybe.
Yep.
I was like, make it make sense. And as Brandon said about God's timing, I had just liquidated an old 403B that I had when I worked for the state. And so we had that cash there, knowing that we needed to do something different with it, that it really was not benefiting us where it was. And we had already, cashed that out and
we didn't want to waste it.
Yeah. Talking about what to do with it. And then again, as Brandon said, we had years of conversations and then long periods of time in between conversations where, we hadn't talked about it. And then all of a sudden it comes back up again. And we were more open to entertaining the conversations, not at all thinking that, okay, this is why I cashed this out. But just now that, he started talking to us about it, I was like, okay, all right. Like we can dabble in this IBC thing. Like, and I told him, I was like, well, I'll stick my toe in, but I really was not 100% on board. As I have come to find out that that's where a lot of the wives start. I jokingly said I was going to start an IBC wives support group because every time we have a pizza in perspective, like the women pull me to the side and they're like, okay, please, like explain it to me. Like, how did you get on board with this? Because I'm not, but I will say I'm so much on board now that, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, Clay says, liquidate your 401k. And I was like, all right, done. And in 5 minutes, I liquidated 20 years worth of investments to move forward with more policies and stuff like that. Like, didn't hesitate, didn't question it. Just, all right, like I believe in this now to the point where I went from toe dipping to jumping all in.
I vividly remember a conversation in y'all's kitchen where you said, now, Brandon, and I want everybody to hear this. This is important. You said, now, Brandon, don't be go messing with my retirement. So to be very clear, we are not advisors and we don't make recommendations of people moving their money. But I want to bring it back to attention to you guys following Nelson's principles. So when you decided to start leaning into this, you began to learn and read and study and grow at a level that led to you getting clarity that cannot be missed, because it doesn't matter what Nate and I know. It matters what you want to know. So, like, talk about that a little bit. One of Nelson's key principles is rethink your thinking and not being afraid to capitalize. Well, y'all did that in your learning. And I think that gets missed so often that played a gigantic role and always will. And you going, oh, this isn't crazy. This actually kind of makes a lot of sense. Why don't we get taught that? So talk about how much you've become readers, learners, listeners, and how you've grown just in the last year as far as this world.
Oh my goodness. I've read more and listened to more podcasts and YouTube videos than I had in the previous 20 years. And I really think that a lot of our shift was because of what we were reading and what we were wanting to learn, as far as just someone tell us what they knew. So, y'all were telling us, but we didn't know it at the time. It took us reading and studying and, having conversations and until we were able to pick it up and know what this looked like. And we still don't know what all the ends of it are, but we are still learning and still trying to implement it better and better instead of just doing the one-time thing and letting it be.
Yep.
And stopping, like some people do. So,
and for clarity, my reading, and I've read probably 8 to 10 books about the subject, and like he said, podcasts and YouTube and all this kind of stuff. But I didn't stop there. I went and looked for the skeptics, because as I've told Brandon before, I love you, Brandon, but I mean, you're a salesman, and like you're going to tell me all the great stuff about it, and I want to believe you, and I do, but I wouldn't be who I am today without doing my due diligence and looking for both sides of things. And so I went searching for the naysayers and reading what they had to say. And every time I'd read their arguments, I'm like, well, that doesn't really make sense, And so, we're not blind followers by any means. We did do our homework before we got to this point a year later of truly, believing and going all in.
Mm-hmm. One of our mentors, Chris Bay, he says, when he tells his story, he said, I did 9 months of skeptical research trying to disprove, like trying to poke every hole I could in this to talk myself out of it. And the truth just revealed itself more and more as I leaned in and learned. Kristy, you said something earlier about dipping your toe in. I think this is something that's really important for people to understand is you don't have to go all in on this idea and this concept right out of the gate. I tell people all the time, some people that we meet want to go all in, and some people want to just dip their toe in. And either place wherever you're at, we're going to meet you where you're at and, help you at whatever stage you're at. But I think what's really fascinating is you started off by saying I'm going to dip my toe in. And a year later, you're like, I'm all in. And that speaks to something that is something else that's often misunderstood is, yes, this idea is a long-term process. It's a long-term journey, but there are some incredible short-term benefits that most people just don't even realize. And one of them, like we were talking about earlier, is just your level of peace of mind, but also just the different mindset that you've taken on since then and how that shapes your decisions going forward. So what are some things that you see now in decisions that you're making about your financial future that you would have never even considered in the past?
Well, I think it's just funny how our conversations change. And we were having a conversation with our sister-in-law yesterday about now everything, as far as financial decisions go, flows through the thought of, but can we do this through our own banking system, and so they're talking about, do I rent out this property? Do I take a HELOC, and everything? And Clay's like, well, what you could do is you could start a policy, and then you could put the extra money from your rentals in there, and then, use a policy loan to pay off your HELOC. Like it's just a total shift in your mindset of how do our finances now flow through our own banking system before they go out into the world, where that concept was completely like not even on the map last year.
Mm-hmm.
Nelson says something, and I want to hear y'all's thoughts on it, because I think you're kind of describing it. He says IBC is caught more than taught, but he also, and that scares people, because as Kristy just alluded to perfectly, no matter what line of business we're in, we're selling. If Kristy's, a nurse, or Leah's a nurse, and they're trying to calm down a patient to get them to do something that's best for them, that's a sales process. It's a confidence process. But Nelson said obviously it's caught more than taught, but he also says once you know what the problem is, you'll know what to do. And I think that intertwines really well to thinking long range and not being afraid to capitalize and rethinking your thinking. So, Clay, you said something earlier about, we haven't figured it all out yet. My question to you is do you think you ever will? And what does that look like now compared to maybe what it used to look like about how money flows through your life?
I don't think we'll ever know everything.
Yeah.
I do think that we will get better at it. We'll be more efficient in the way that we move that money. But I know we're going to keep learning and keep trying to find ways to make it better.
Yep. And the reason that question came to my mind is because Nelson, and becoming your own banker, I was just at an academy with people beginning to teach this, and it was so cool to hear Nelson's stories. Nelson's reminder was that arrival syndrome is real. And it is ready to knock us out every morning when we get up, when we think we've got it all figured out. And so that's really why I asked the question, is like Nelson's premises were so valuable through any season of life, but Nelson also would rather us know about the Lord before IBC, which I can't tell you how many times the conversation of money and faith in our journey with the Lord have become a common conversation in a healthy way, even if uncomfortable, that allows living conversations in our family, like you just described with your brother and those kind of things. So you guys have mentioned Tucker. We're going to also mention Noah, and Noah is 22, and he is recently married to his wife, Hannah. And so I've had the privilege of being kind of a mentor, if you will, to him. But what I love is that he is involved and Hannah is involved in these conversations Clay and Kristy are having over the last year.
Right.
And so talk a little bit about what that means to you guys, because you're already generational thinkers. You already care about family. You're already really close to your family. What how has this opened up y'all's mindset as far as family and, what the Bible says about long range thinking and taking care of our next generation?
This
Punt that off to me.
I definitely think that train up a child in the way that they should go, and they will not depart, is very significant in our lives. We have tried, and not always have we been the best at raising our children. They're not perfect. I know a lot of parents want to think that theirs are. We know ours are not. But we have tried to instill in them a legacy. I had a baseball team, I don't know, 5-6 years ago that Tucker played on, and the name of the team was Legacy. And that was because the word legacy means a lot to me because of who my grandfather was. He was a man of faith. He every time I went over to the house, he was reading the Bible. He was at everything that we did, just very supportive of his grandkids, all of us. And to be a Grubbs at that time brought special characteristics that we all strive for. And I've tried to pass that on to my boys. My father passed it on to me, and that's what we have tried to have our boys do as well. And so creating this legacy of generational thought processes to keep the Lord at the front and center, not to become wealthy, but to keep doing what the Lord has asked us to do, and that is to spread the gospel. And to me, we are mission-minded. We like to go, and we like to help and serve. And I think using this system is going to increase our chances of being able to do that more and more. And that's what I think, that's the path that the Lord is going to lead us down. And what that looks like, that's where we are in life right now. We don't know what the next season looks like, but we are being faithful to him. Like I told you this morning, we're being faithful to holding on to the promises that he has given us so that we're ready whenever he says go.
Yeah, you remind me of the story of the ant in Proverbs about how it's always preparing. It doesn't look around and go, hey, what do I need to do? It doesn't look around and go, hey, what season is it? It knows that there's work to be done.
Right.
Whether they're all doing it together or individually, they all have a job. So that's so good. And I really like what you just pointed to there. Most people, myself included, have said generational wealth. And you said thought processes, mindsets, legacy, heritage. What do we stand for? And what do we want that to exemplify in all decisions? And Nate says this often, the money just becomes the magnifier.
Yes.
The accelerant or the detractor. All right, Kristy, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay, let's move over.
You're good.
We're going to kind of get out of the sun. Fire guys just showed up, so you're fixing to have company.
Okay, that's fine. So we've had this conversation several times, Kristy, where it's obvious that in the world of infinite banking and becoming your own banker that we're in, there's a lot of noise because you can go find stuff on TikTok now and all these different things. And it doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means that some people are really trying to sell. So for you as a wife and as a female, it's very rare in our world, Nate and I, the hundreds of conversations we have, in y'all's world now, because y'all are starting to have these conversations, where the wife is the one who comes to the idea first or aggressively, because typically speaking, the husband's the one thinking he's the provider as a whole and handling finances, not always, but often. What would you tell yourself or other wives now that you know that maybe you didn't know a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, like as far as your journey and your mindset? Because it's a very important piece that we are learning, because Nate and myself and Clay can talk about obviously and becoming your own banker and the value it brings to our family all day long, but we don't speak the language you speak. So when you say it, what are some things that really resonate with you?
Well, I'll say the first thing that God has been working on my heart is letting my husband lead.
Mm.
Oh, Brandon.
Sorry, I've done it before too, so it's okay. I've broken down on this show before, so
Okay,
it's all good.
Right. Well, I'm in good company. And along the same vein, realizing God's in control of our finances, period, even though we'd like to think that we are. So that's been a big lesson. As a nurse, I was making very good money, and I felt like because of that, it gave me a sense of control. And maybe I didn't know at the time that I needed to work on that. Realizing that I'm really not in control of anything. And so, when Clay first introduced the idea, I was skeptical and I was not ready to, I guess, turn over the reins to him or to God. Let me keep holding on to this because I can control this. And so that has been deep for me over the last year of prayerfully asking God what right looks like, because like you said, there is a lot of noise. And so how do you discern that, and asking for God's discernment in those decisions would be my number one piece of advice for any woman thinking about this is this right for you? Is this right for your family? And maybe it is, maybe it's not, but that was step number one, is to turn it over to God and say, all right, like, here we are. I feel like you keep bringing it up. You were Brandon one. And so I'm here to listen. So to open up my eyes, show me what you're, want me to learn from this. And then, giving over that control.
So you've said many times we've had tons of conversations, normally over a puzzle, because Leah and Kristy like to do puzzles, and Clay will help some. I don't, but I'm glad to have their thing. But you said something to me early on, and I don't remember how you worded it exactly, but you basically said America's got it backwards. You remember the statement where you went into the idea of all the energy we exert early for these things that we get to that we're at an age where we can't enjoy and our kids are gone? Yeah. You remember that conversation?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So touch on that for just a second, because I thought it was so important. It was like, we're not just teaching you guys what we know. Y'all are constantly teaching us from your perspective. And that's really how growth happens faster, is people get around each other and are willing to share their own experiences. So what did you mean? Go in a little bit more depth of what you said there.
Well, as two working parents, seems like I'm sure that this resonates with every working person in America. You set your sights on this arbitrary date of when you can stop working.
Finish
and so
line.
So you pour all your energy, your time, your efforts into this job, that you have this, 30 years or whatever your number is to get done with. And then during that time, you're missing out on your kids' stuff, or you're mentally or physically so exhausted that when you get home in the evenings, you can't enjoy your family. And then you're pushing to this date of being done so you can, stay at home with who? Like, because now your kids are gone, all those things that you missed out on during your working years are are gone. They're, have moved on with their lives. And that it's just one of those moments of, probably mom guilt had a lot to do with it. I know I personally was giving 110% to work and then having little to nothing left when I got home in the evenings and going, what, this don't make any sense. Like, these are the people that I want to spend all my time with and dump my energy into, and I'm expending it outside of the home so that I can get to a date and time where I can sit at home and do nothing. Like, I don't know. It seemed backwards to me. And I'm like, we should spend our early years at home with our families and spending more time with them. And then when we were, at our retirement age, when we don't have anything else to do, then I'll go to work so that I'm not bored sitting at the house. But, like I said, it was just, I don't want to miss out on this precious time that I have with my family. As Clay said, we've got one more year with Tucker at home. And so that, has also led to let's rethink our thinking of how we're spending our days and how we're prioritizing our lives. And frankly, I wish we had done this years ago before our oldest got out of the house where, but as we think generationally, we're like, okay, maybe we didn't get it right until the end, but we've got a chance to set Noah and Hannah and Tucker on a different trajectory where, like you said, we start teaching them these concepts now before they have kids of their own, and maybe change the way that they prioritize things when they do have their own families.
You reminded me as you were saying that. Go ahead, Nate.
No, I was just going to say, we've only got a few minutes left, but this ties in perfectly to what Kristy just said. If you're listening, Clay has his ULC shirt on, and it says "Live different, live unlimited." Yep. What does that mean to y'all?
Live different. So the first part, live different, for us is going to be, I think for us, it's going to be putting Christ first and knowing that what we're doing is for his glory, because it all belongs to him anyway.
We've had many conversations with our kids pre-ULC. We're big believers in tithing. We have faithfully tithed since we got married. And of course, our children look around at the rest of the world and they're like, well, we live in a big house. Why don't we have this and that or whatever? And we have to explain that we choose to use our money differently than the world. And so this practice just reinforces, that different living, that it does look different than the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. And that's okay, as long as we're in God's will.
And so by living differently allows us the freedom to live unlimited, so that we can go and do what we're called to do, not what we have to do.
Man, I don't know if I could have asked a better question than that. That was fantastic. Yeah, so live different and live unlimited is definitely a personal thing related to your personal experiences. And one thing that Nate and I love that you just hit on is what we get to do and teach every day is about sharing Christ. Our work is our worship of him. And it just happens to be that he gave us this information that, for whatever reason, two knuckleheads from Elysian Fields were able to learn and process. And the Lord kept, not for whatever reason, the Lord allowed all these things to happen to give people the idea that just because everybody says it's the way it should be done, if it's taking us further from Christ or further from the things we know we're scripturally called to do, there's conflict there.
Yes. And
we may not recognize it, but we feel it. Like Kristy described, I'm working my tail off for this job and I have no energy left at the end of the day. Is this really what we're called to do? And yes, we're called to provide. That is scripturally sound. We're called to, work hard and do things with joy, but we're also very clearly called to live life on purpose for His will, and loving the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, and mind, and loving others as we love ourselves. That's really the two things that we get to do. So, guys, I'm so grateful that you, first of all, invited me and the boys and Leah here, because this place is awesome. Secondly, I just want y'all to know how much of a thoughtful heart they have. They gave me and the boys the master bedroom, and I'm so unaware that I didn't realize until this morning as I'm getting ready. I'm like, this bathroom is huge. This is an awesome guest bathroom. I was like, oh, this is why I need my wife with me all the time, because she would have been like, hey, did they give us the master as soon as she walked in the room? Y'all don't only say you like to serve, but you live that. Like, I see that in all the things that you do. So we're very grateful that you guys and the Lord has crossed our paths at this season, even if it took 6-7 years for y'all to believe I wasn't crazy. But overall, if you had any one thing to leave with anybody listening or watching from what you know now, what would that key thing be?
Allow yourself to think outside the norms. Don't be so tied to the American, I'm going to work, I'm going to save money in my retirement, and then I'm going to retire, and then I'm going to wait to die. Don't get stuck in that loop. That would be my advice.
Would you agree with that, Kristy?
Absolutely.
Well, I'm looking forward to already having our next recording. Kristy will be even more comfortable than she was. She did a pretty good job of acting like she wasn't uncomfortable. But Clay and I coerced her into not having a choice, basically. And we're glad she shared and y'all shared your story. But I'm also excited to be, good Lord willing, a year from now, doing another one and getting to hear what that looks like.
Yep.
Always get forward in the new season of life. So we appreciate everything that y'all do. We hope this was valuable for everybody listening. We're so thankful that you share your most valuable resources. You do listen or watch, and we'll catch you on the next one.